Welcome to our analysis. We're the gambling databases research team, and our mission is to deliver, really in-depth, data-driven looks at the global iGaming landscape.
We dig into everything, local regulations, tax, player experience, and really the core operator conditions that tell you if a market is actually worth your time.
And today, we are focusing on a market that, on paper, should be an absolute goldmine, but in reality...
It's a textbook example of regulatory self-sabotage. We're talking about Guatemala.
Yeah, we're pulling the most important insights from our latest country report. And the contradiction here is it's genuinely shocking.
It is.
You look at the core demographics, this massive young mobile population, and you immediately see decades of potential growth. Just explosive potential.
But then we run the numbers. We run the regulatory risk assessment, the economic viability model, and that whole beautiful picture it collapses.
It's probably the highest contrast market we've analyzed this quarter. The data is so conflicting, it really forces you to ask, is this just incompetence or is it, active protectionism?
I think that's the core tension we need to solve. And it all comes down to understanding why a market with all this promise ended up with our extraordinarily low overall market attractiveness score.
A 3.2 out of 10.
Yeah, 3.2.
Which, for anyone listening, that basically means do not enter. And yet, the numbers that first draw operators in are so compelling. So let's start there. Let's give the market its due, because the consumer side of the story is powerful.
Absolutely. The potential energy there is immense.
Yeah.
I mean, we are talking about 18.7 million residents.
Right.
And what immediately jumps out is just how young the population is. The median age is a remarkably low 27.7 years.
Think about that for a second. From a long-term strategy perspective, a median age that low means 55% of the entire country is under 25.
Mm-hmm.
For any digital entertainment business, that just translates directly into a high potential for customer lifetime value. It's generational growth, really.
Assuming they have the money to spend, of course.
Of course. But it's still, the dream demographic for digital adoption.
And this demographic is fully mobilized. This isn't a country that's like catching up to digital trends. It is a mobile-first society.
Through and through.
Mobile penetration is at 80% nationwide. And smartphone penetration is robust. We're talking 70%.
70%.
Wow. Internet penetration hit just over 60% in early 2025. That's over 11.3 million users. And the number is climbing steadily. The base is there. They're ready, they're accessible.
And they're culturally receptive, too. This isn't a market where you have to overcome some big societal resistance to gambling.
Not at all.
Our analysis shows a really high cultural tolerance. The most popular activity is football betting at around 37% participation.
And right behind that, online slots at 23%. So the demand is there, and it's already segmented.
Even the payment infrastructure, which is so often a huge barrier in emerging markets, seems to be, well, it's getting there.
It's modernizing. Yeah, it's prioritizing convenience. You've got your credit and debit cards, PayPal, bank transfers.
And those local mobile wallets like Tigo Money.
Exactly. Tigo Money is crucial for that younger urban consumer.
Okay. So you've just perfectly described the honeypot. It's young, mobile, culturally open, with growing digital reach and a payment system that, works well enough.
Mm-hmm.
If you're an international operator just looking at that data, you are already calculating the long-term ROI. But, and this is a huge but.
Here comes the cold water.
Yes. Before anyone rushes to open an office in Guatemala City, let's talk about the legal reality that gets poured all over this perfect digital storm.
This is the necessary pivot, because this is where the legal quagmire just completely undermines everything we just discussed.
So land-based is fine.
Land-based activities, casinos, betting shops, they're legal and they're tightly controlled. That framework exists. It's established.
But for digital?
It's a totally different story. Our report explicitly calls the digital gambling framework underdeveloped. And here's a critical line. There is no explicit licensing pathway for online operators.
So it's not just that it's complicated, it just doesn't exist.
Pretty much. The government maintains this very restrictive stance, which leaves the entire, booming online segment in this deep legal gray area.
And it seems like that void is specifically designed to keep foreign operators out.
That's our read. The report states there is, and I'm quoting here, no clear legal pathway for foreign operators to acquire licenses.
This part I found fascinating. They mention a theoretical licensing process, right?
They do.
An application fee of around $50,000 US, a process that takes 6 to 12 months. But it's all theoretical for online gaming.
Exactly. It's a regulatory black hole. The actual mechanism to award that license or even to apply for it with a clear path to offer digital services, it's not there.
It seems like they're just collecting fees for a service they can't legally deliver.
And that's why we lean towards it being, political resistance,
Mm.
maybe protectionism. Because to even attempt this theoretical process, you have to establish a local presence.
And form those mandatory partnerships.
Right. With local entities, which imposes these severe restrictions on foreign ownership and control. It makes it almost impossible to get the kind of flexibility an international operator needs.
But why? If the government knows the demographic potential is this huge, why wouldn't they just set up a clear legal framework? They could be capturing that tax revenue we'll get to later.
Well, this is what leads us to believe they're actively protecting existing land-based monopolies from online competition.
Because they aren't passive here.
Not at all. And this is what elevates the risk from high to critical. Despite all the legal ambiguity, the government prohibits unlicensed online gambling
And they enforce it.
actively
Mm.
with raids and blocking access to unlicensed sites. So you're not just operating in a gray area. You're operating under direct threat.
So let me get this straight. You face paying licensing fees for a license that might not even be real. You're forced into restrictive local partnerships. And you have active ISP blocking and raids threatening your business.
And your staff on the ground, potentially.
Wow. Okay, that moves us perfectly into the economic reality check. Because when you run the numbers against that level of friction, the whole thing just falls apart.
Let's start with the market size. It's shock. Despite 18.7 million people and all that mobile adoption, the total iGaming market is estimated at only $20 million in 2024.
20 million, that's tiny.
It's a market penetration rate of just 3%. All that demographic potential is just locked away.
And the spending power is so constrained that incredible young population is also dealing with some pretty big economic limitations.
Huge limitations.
Mhm.
The per capita income is only about $4,700.
And the poverty rate,
It's staggering, 44%.
44%.
Yeah.
So that just cuts your addressable market right down no matter how many people have a smartphone.
Precisely. Our analysis shows the average revenue per user, the ARPU, is a dismal $35 a month.
$35. This is not a high roller market.
No. You're looking for high volume, very low margin transactions from a tiny sliver of the population.
And then you have to layer the tax burden on top of that.
Right. So investors might look at the gross gaming revenue tax, the GGR tax rate, which is 15%.
Which seems workable, manageable.
On its own, yes. But you have to factor in the separate 25% corporate income tax.
Okay, so let's break this down for everyone listening because the effective rate is what really matters.
Exactly. When you combine the GGR tax with that corporate tax, the actual hit on every dollar you earn is somewhere between 37.75% and 40%.
40%. That is aggressive for any emerging market, let alone one with all these other problems.
It makes the economics completely unworkable.
Yeah.
If you look at the minimum cost to even get in the door, those theoretical license fees, the lawyers, the working capital, you're shelling out over $420,000.
Before you've even signed up a single player.
And to justify that, you'd need to capture a huge chunk of that tiny $20 million market just to break even. And that's before factoring in the enforcement risk. Our report calls it virtually impossible for a rational operator.
But the real nail in the coffin for me is the cost of customer acquisition.
Marketing is heavily regulated. You're forced to limit advertising to licensed premises and approved channels.
Which, of course, completely excludes the online world where your customers actually are.
So because of those restrictions and the ISP blocking, your customer acquisition costs, your CAC, are prohibitively expensive.
How expensive are we talking?
We estimate it's likely somewhere between $200 and $500, maybe even higher, per customer.
So you're paying Manhattan advertising prices to get small-town revenue.
That's a great way to put it.
If your average customer is only bringing in $35 a month, you need 6 to 14 months of perfect retention just to break even on acquiring them.
And that's before overhead. Before that 40% tax hit, the model just doesn't close.
There's no way.
Which is why the risk level for any offshore operator is unequivocally critical. You face criminal sanctions for illegal gambling facilitation and active ISP blocking. Our operator E-score is a 2.8 out of 10.
A fundamental signal to avoid entry.
Say it away.
This has been a deeply insightful and, frankly, a very sobering look at how regulatory reality can just completely negate demographic opportunity.
Yeah.
We've reviewed a market with phenomenal potential. It's young, mobile-first, receptive, that is rendered completely non-viable by these insurmountable legal and financial barriers.
The gambling database's research team's final verdict is clear. We have to stress this. Do not enter this market unless you are a massive, existing regional operator who already accepts operating in this kind of restrictive gray area with criminal enforcement risk as, I don't know, marginal part of a much bigger strategy.
For everyone else looking for legal, predictable, scalable growth, this is a hard pass.
It's a shame because the growth is undeniable. Our report projects a 10% compound annual growth rate, but it's all stunted by regulatory fear.
So this raises an important question, something for you, the listener, to consider as you follow the region's legal shifts.
For this market to truly flip, to move beyond that 3.2 rating and actually become viable for rational investment, what's the single most important change that would need to happen?
Is it establishing a clear, mandatory online licensing path?
Or is it drastically cutting that effective tax rate from 40%?
Or maybe it's something more fundamental, like just explicitly halting the ISP blocking and the enforcement raids.
Which one is the first domino that has to fall? It's something to mull over as we wait and see if Guatemala ever decides to actually harness its own potential.
A fascinating, if frustrating, case study. Thank you for joining us for this analysis.
And for the full text of this report and all our other country reports, you can find them on our website, gamblingdatabases.com.